So after that
Oh,
commercial break,
let's see. We back? Yeah, hopefully we're back now.
great, lovely. So after that commercial break, I was talking about run and wrong, and I Einstein used to talk about mistakes, as a scientist, and he said, if you're not making mistakes, you're not doing anything. But the way that we do the listening comprehension as a test rather than as an exercise, if you get -1 each time, and if they get 8, 7, 6, and 5, and the person who got 8 felt much better than the person who got 5, and these were really intelligent, hot university researchers that I was working with in the group from hell, who taught me a lot. Then if listening is about getting a good score, then what we should do to accommodate our students is to dumb it down as much as we possibly can, which, hey presto, is what we do. And so if you look at the language used in a reading comprehension test for a B2 exam, and then you look at the equivalent in the listening, the language, there's an abyss of difference. So the reading is way, way more complex than the listening. And that's just a result of us dumbing down. There's no reason in specifically why that has to be like that, apart from the fact that we're not very good as a sector at teaching listening. And teaching listening, just like teaching reading, involves getting them into their zone of proximal development, as Vygotsky would say. So anyone who's not aware of Vygotsky, it's very similar to Krashen's I+1 in a sense. So give them material which is just above their level of their threshold of comprehension, and give them plenty of opportunities to use that in order to learn. And Einstein said, if you're not making mistakes, you're not doing anything. But then he went on and he said, if you're not correcting, if you're not trying to correct those mistakes, then you're doing even less. And so how about if we get a tool together that enables people to make their hypotheses without teacher seeing? And so you take away that affective filter a little bit. And so instead of being a teacher-centered exercise, which most listening exercises in textbooks are, you're flipping it around, if you like. It's a flipped classroom, and you're making it completely student-centered. Because in every class, we have this bell curve of abilities. So when we do a listening, especially, some people will finish in no trouble after just a couple of minutes. And other people, it doesn't matter how long you leave them, they're never going to finish. And how can you find something that will accommodate both of those? And so with these voice books, what we found is that the brightest ones in the class can finish in 5 minutes, and then they can go off and do some other exercise. The slowest ones, especially when they're doing it at home, maybe they'll take 40 minutes to do exactly the same thing as the person who did it in 5 minutes. But under normal circumstances, when you're doing a listening, the people who complete it in 5 minutes get to this point, and the people who can't just stay where they are. And the gap widens and widens and widens until it's hopeless even putting them in the same class together, which is, of course, what happens in most state schools. So in a lot of recipes for disaster happening in the classroom that are connected with listening. But if you can have a tool where the brightest pupil can do it in 5 minutes, and the slowest one can do it in 40 minutes, but they both get to the same point at the end, then you as a teacher can look at 5 minutes, no problems, etc. That's not very interesting. 40 minutes, you can see all of the processes that went on inside the person's head, see how the hypotheses that they began with then start to change. And so they're able to take run and wrong and get rid of wrong and understand that it's run, and then they go up to the next stage. And what you need is a tool that will enable them to try out all of these hypotheses in a safe way, so the teacher never finds out, if you like, or the teacher only sees that you have done a hell of a lot of work and you've got up to the same sort of level. And doing this with the voice books, which I'll show you obviously in a second, people we used this with a school in Sardinia up in the mountains, where they'll forgive me for saying that basically the economy was based on rearing sheep, and in some villages on kidnapping. And so it's not, you know, the local grammar school with the kids who've all done English classes since they were 5 years old, etc. Those guys in Sardinia, some of them who had learning disabilities, they all got a B2 on their school leaving certificate here in Italy. And, you know, we talk about the B1 plateau for everybody, you know, and I think listening is probably very closely connected with this B1 plateau of going home and saying, Mum, I got 3 on my English listening test, you know, just I should have been given 0 really, but you know, 3 is the minimum mark, you know, I don't know what to do. And Mum says, oh yeah, I'm no good at languages either, you know, we're not language learners, you know. And so, you know, another generation gets lost into this, you know, this meaningless cliche of we're no good at languages. That's ridiculous. Most Italians, at least, speak their own language, speak their own dialect, and they speak Italian, so they're already bilingual. So the problem is not there. It's not the fact that they can't learn languages, but English is an incredibly complex language phonetically, certainly compared to Spanish and Italian, and we just don't take that into account whatsoever. So run and wrong have virtually, well, they have what, one sound in common, but as far as an Italian and presumably a Spanish person and many other languages are concerned, they are homophones. And how do you give the our kids this possibility of trying out these sounds and understanding this this difference? And so they try out wrong. They see that wrong doesn't help. They can listen again. Then they can, if none of their hypotheses help, then they can click on the asterisks that they're trying to fill in, and it will tell them what run means. You may see somebody running or something like that. It's a hint along that. And they go, that's a word that I know already. And 99% of the words that we find that people can't understand are words that they know very well. But the go-to method that we use for teaching new vocabulary, for learning new vocabulary, if you like, is through reading, because listening is too difficult. And so if you do it through reading, what do you do as a student? You invent the pronunciation. And if you haven't got a really, really good schooling in the number of vowel sounds that there are in English and the ability to distinguish between them, and your teacher hasn't got you to use your smartphone in class to dictate to WhatsApp the words that you're hearing or reading, etc., then you haven't got a clue about how to pronounce all of these all of these new words that you're coming across in the text. And some people will go and listen online to all of the words, etc., and that'll help, but not very much in connected speech. But it'll give a little bit of a help. But most of them, you know, they're not going to do that because they've failed so much with English already that it's just that thing that they have to do at school. And okay, I'll give it a go. And us as native speakers, if there are any non-native speakers here and you don't know this, when we find a new word in English and we look at the text, sometimes we go, I wonder how you pronounce that. Now, there's us Brits will know, oh, what's his name? The editor of Private Eye.
Ian Hislop?
Ian Hislop, yeah. The other day, I was listening to him on a podcast, and he got a word wrong. He pronounced it wrong, and I was going, you can't say longevity, can you? That is not. And you know, this is the intelligentsia of Britain. I heard a Nobel Prize winner who had a German name, and she said, oh, I always have these words on the tip of my tongue. Anyway, she said a word, she mispronounced it. And so I thought, oh, she sounded very English when she was speaking. Maybe she wasn't. Went to look her up on Wikipedia. She was born in Hawaii, just like one president said that he was. And so she's, you know, complete native speaker. And oh, the word will come to me in a minute. And so we make mistakes when we're pronouncing words that we've only read. And I'm sure that Ian Hislop had read longevity, and it was so strange that I went to the dictionary and said, "Is this an alternative pronunciation?" And no, it's not.
I've got my own example of that recently,
right.
and I have to admit I have not been a good language learner, and I haven't gone and looked up the pronunciation.
Right.
But it was I'll spell the word and then you can tell me the correct pronunciation. Gavel. So the little hammer that
it's
judges.
a gavel.
Gavel. I wasn't sure whether it was gavel or gavel. Gavel.
Yeah, navel and gay. Yeah, I mean, there's no way that we could know. So non-native speakers, don't worry when you make mistakes. We do them all of the time. I can remember a guy at school with like a really simple word. We were reading a book in English, and it was talking about the HMS Leopard, and he kept saying leopard, and the teacher wasn't sure whether he was having him on. You know, we were 14, 15, that sort of thing. And in the end, it's leopard, boy, for God's sake. And he looked at that, and everybody just split up laughing. He lost control of the class, as tends to happen with these things. And it was purely in good faith from him. And let's see. So if you can get your new words by listening, and then also associate this listening sound with a written word. So what you're doing with Voicebooks is you're typing in what you think you heard, using so you can either type them in, or you can dictate them in if you prefer to do it that way around. But in either way, you're connecting up a phoneme with a grapheme. The written the sound of the word with the written form. And you know, I'm very, very aware from using voicebook.cloud and seeing the feedback that all of the students get for themselves, and that also gets held in our database, that most 11, 12-year-olds have no connection between the sound and the written word at all. And so then when they go on to these middle schools, they're being asked to read a lot. And so, of course, this gavel and navel and longevity, etc., is something that's being written large, if you'll pardon the pun, into every sentence that they're reading, into everything that they're listening to. And where they might know the written word, but they cannot connect the sound with that, it's pointless giving them any sort of listening comprehension. So just as with reading, the first thing that we do is use bottom-up strategies to understand that that's an A and that's an N and that's a Y, and you go, okay, great, any. Then you need top-down strategies in order to make some sense of that word in the in the sentence. So you'll use, you might be aware of how it's used grammatically, and you might be aware that it has 4 or 5 different meanings according to the syntax that we're using, etc. So top down and bottom up are going on during reading the whole time, just as they are in listening. So you have a split second to decide whether what you're hearing is right or wrong. And then you have another split second to understand the next word and the next word and the next word. And that's the juggling that I was talking about before. And at a certain point, after 5 seconds, sometimes you see their faces, they just kind of go during the lesson. And when you've got that, we as teachers, we shouldn't be making them listen. We're just overloading them, hurting their self-esteem. So we should be stopping. And so with the voice books, we just make it very intensive. Just one utterance, it can be a sentence or a clause in a sentence that they're listening to. Could even just be a single word when they're really low level. When they're just starting to, there's no reason why they shouldn't just be cat, and they try and write the word cat. But they're very, very pre-A1 level. Anything that gives them success is great, but how can we change their attitude towards mistakes? And if they know that by making a mistake, they can recuperate. So where a mistake is an opportunity for learning and not a threat of getting a -1 or getting the lowest mark, then we've taken the whole of the listening process out of the testing arena and put it into the learning arena. And if you're working in your zone of proximal development, then by Vygotsky's definition, you are learning. And what we found is that people spend 20% of their time below their threshold. So they're writing in the words that they've understood or think that they've understood. And they get all these asterisks starting to fill out, and they're feeling great. And then they reach their threshold. And that threshold says anything that you haven't got here, anything you haven't been able to fill in, that corresponds to your needs. Your needs are what you need to be learning here. So we get them to work in, it's generally about 80% of their time that they're spending in their zone of proximal development. And sometimes it can be really just too difficult. And if they really can't get it after a few times that they've tried to guess, they can just get given the answer. And whether they're just given the answer or whether they do it through their own devices, and they really generally want to do it through their own devices, at the end, they tend to click on the sound and they say to each other, especially if they're working in pairs, and working in pairs is a lovely way of doing this, because all of a sudden they start speaking about language, which is something that, to me as a teacher, they don't want to do. They don't want to look stupid, but they're very happy to do it to their, if they're working in pairs on a listening and they're trying to beat the other pair that's working over there, then they'll talk about language. And no, it can't be that, because do you remember that the past of read is read is written the same way, so it can't, yeah, etc., etc. And when they come to the end, they get another opportunity to listen, and they click on it, and they say, "Well, I don't know why we had such problems with understanding that." And the reason is because they hadn't worked in their zone of proximal development. They hadn't done any learning for 80% of the time, and now they have. And when the word that you can't understand is that, because it's one of the words that we use in connected speech and that you can hardly hear. And I've had emails from people saying, there's no word there where you wrote that, angry from Tunbridge Wells. When you haven't been able to hear that, and it may be important, may not be important, but in any case, you're refining your ability to pick up on sound. You're not going to get fooled the second time, etc., etc. Whereas when you're doing comprehension questions, you're going to get fooled for the next 13 years of your English classes, because you're not picking up on it, and you might even get the tape script, but next time you're not going to hear it because you're not able to do all of that piecemeal work that you're able to do when you're working in a voice book. And then you will get, when you've listened again, you go, oh yeah, okay, now I understand it. Well, hang on, I don't actually understand it, because here it says he thought he would get away with it, and I understand all of those words, but I don't understand what's been said. And so then you have the reflection page, the blue page, and it'll explain to you what getting away with something would mean. And so the teacher can say, okay, this is comprehension. Let's talk in the class after you've done this about getting away with things. And we know that everybody in the class has got onto that reflection page through their own efforts, not by somebody telling them, okay, today we're going to learn the verb to get away with, but by being challenged to fit all of the pieces together and the sound, then go into the meaning, then work on the comprehension. And so I love comprehension questions at the end of the process. Mm-hmm. Problem is, we've stuck them at the beginning, and they have a very deleterious effect on language learning for those who reach their B1 plateau. And I'd be so interested to see, because these kids in Sardinia, they had a B1, they probably had an A2 plateau, you know? And these kids, they were getting B2s on their listening and B1 on their reading, because of course the B1 reading is way more complex in terms of language use and in terms of questions than the B2 listening. Where for these kids, whether they were getting the input through reading or through listening, it didn't really matter. So of course they were going to get a B2 on listening, because listening is a lot easier than it is with reading, as I said before. Right. Shall I show you what, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll show you a couple of errors that people made. Now, you'll give me just a couple of seconds, because I had this all nicely prepared on the other computer, but I think I can get it pretty quickly.
Awesome. And I mean, to be honest, obviously I first met you maybe a couple of years ago at Innovate, and I hadn't, well, Voicebooks as the app, it seems, is relatively new, but I hadn't realized this had been such a passion project for so long for you.
Yeah. It's funny, because in the 90s, it was big. It was CD-ROMs were very big, and then they just nosedived, and suddenly we didn't have a market anymore, and everybody went off and did other things. And I mean, we tried to use the web when it first came out, but I don't know if you remember. Do you remember that wonderful feeling of, wow, we can download a trailer for a film, and you would go and you'd click and you go, 1 hour 27. Okay, let's go out for a beer and we'll come back. And that was multimedia on the web at the time, and it was just, you couldn't possibly use a voice book under circumstances like that. And so I went off, brought up my kids, had a lovely time. My kids are off at working at university, etc., etc. Great, let's start this again. Because what I'd always wanted to do was to use the web to give instant feedback and help to teachers and pupils. And that was something you can't build up a database when you've got a CD-ROM. We can't get to understand about the listening process when the kids are using CD-ROMs. So I really wanted to come back and do this online, and we started just at the beginning of this thing called lockdown, which was just best time to start a business. Yeah, it's luckily we had a few schools that wanted to join in, and we tried out the proof of concept. We saw that it was working way beyond our expectations, and so yeah, it's something that I'd given up basically for 20 years, and but it's just this thing I had in my head. I really want to do this. I really want to do this, because it breaks my heart to see all these kids having problems with listening, which are they're not necessary. It's just the way that we're doing it. And I had this lovely opportunity. I met John Field in Exeter many years ago when I was just thinking, how am I going to bring this in? And we sat down, and if anybody hasn't read Listening in the Language Classroom by John Field, just go buy it for yourself as a Christmas present, because it'll completely change the way that that you think about listening, if this talk hasn't already done that. And it'll very much put you in the shoes of the poor learner and what they're being asked to do. And I always encourage teachers to go and watch a film on Netflix in a foreign language, and then get somebody to ask them some comprehension questions about it and see how well they're doing. And it's such a tough task. So anything that we can do to put ourselves in our learners' shoes is so much the better. And when you use Voicebooks as a teacher, you get to see run and wrong. Oh, I would have never have thought of that, but let me see if I can get up some more of these more of these say minimal pairs that people weren't picking up on. Okay. All right.
If you want to go back to screen sharing as well, I'm sure everybody's really excited to see.
I will do that.
See behind the scenes.
Just to point out to anybody who is of a nervous disposition, this is not safe for work, because there are some rather interesting hypotheses that people come out with. So there we go. Share sound, even though we're not going to use it. Oh, I might use sound. No, immediately. Okay, right. So you can see here, presumably, is this big enough? Shall I make it a little bit bigger?
Nope, that's fine. I was on silent then as well.
Yeah, okay, great. Yeah. So Beren was listening to ordering some food, and there was somebody who said some meat. And so, of course, the word she had to get was meat. But she wrote eat, some eat. What is the difference? Is there any difference? Maybe just a little bit, yeah. And the classic one, clothes and clothes. Clothes. If you're hearing this and you're hearing clothes, okay, you go off in one direction, and it's incredibly difficult to change your mind about what you're listening to. In fact, yesterday there was a lovely thing. Was it? I think it was on Instagram, of people listening to a football chant, and they said, "Okay, this is the words that they're saying. You can hear these words, can't you?" And they would go, yeah, we can hear those words. And then they'd say, okay, listen to the same thing again, but these are the words, and completely different words. I'll share it with the group when I find it. I was looking for it this morning, couldn't find it to save my life. Right, now the next one is really rather interesting. Oh, hang on, how did we get into this? Right, a hassle. And it's amazing how many 13-year-olds know this word very well. And he'd actually tried it out with 7 letters and then realized, oh, no, too many letters in this one. They all know this word. And it's this really common thing that they've come up with. And, you know, it's a wonderful way of getting them to learn new vocabulary. So leopards, having talked about my school friend, and lepers, you know, wonderful. That's the other way around, if you like. My favorite animals, a Persian cat, a passion cat, you know, and all of these things. And I looked at this for a second and I went, how can these two, but in some accents, the way we say cute, yeah, it's the same sound, you know. And so what hope do these poor kids have when they've got the teacher-centered question that's saying, how did Jane describe her cat? Well, Keat, I don't know. Yeah, or wouldn't even be able to get that far because the top-down processes don't come in yet when they're doing that. This was one of my favorites. This was a girl sitting in front of me, girl who works here in here, said, and so Anthony, what do you do anyway? And I said, come and do this. And it was rush hour. And she went, okay, great, I've got that, shower, no problem. And, you know, you're going way off course. Getting, because maybe the previous word ended with a f. Enough, getting, forgetting, yeah. Cell phone and self. It's just, you'd think they would get cell phone, but yeah, but they use selfie the whole time, don't they? You know, and have we ever even thought of the problems that they have with this kind of thing? Some more not safe for work. Peas and piss. Well, you know, they only have one sound in common, which is the p, but they don't know that. Yeah? And so she tried again with peace and etc. And that didn't work. And this was war games. Yeah. What's she going to do about what should we do? You know, watch. Yeah, of course, you know. And this is within the space of just a few hours, lots of different, these are all, they're about 13, all of them. And, you know, they're not understanding nearly enough to be able to answer a comprehension question. But they all got there. All of them completed all of these phrases, clicked on it, clicked on the play and went, yeah, it was pretty easy, wasn't it? Because I know all of these words. Looked at the reflection page and went, oh, I see. Okay, that's why it wasn't piss. That's why, okay, peas helps me to understand. I can now understand peas. Okay, right. For whatever reason, they misunderstood, and now whether they took 5 minutes, whether they took 40 minutes, but the person who took 5 minutes, I haven't mentioned this. The person who took 5 minutes to get all the comprehension questions right. What have they learned to answer listening comprehension questions? Okay, that's a great everyday skill, isn't it? You know, you don't get that. You need to understand the person that's on the other end of the Zoom call, what they're saying, if they've got their microphone on, etc. And you know, there's more and more of these things. You know, somewhat was someone, funded was founded. This was an adult. the mind blows in fact. And as a teacher, you get all of these. And if you've got a class, you get to see what were the words that they clicked on, what that most people had to click on because they ran out of their hypotheses, and they needed to click and go, oh, so it's run. Okay, I've got it. Which were those words? And you see, so 12 of my group had a problem with this word. Okay, great. Now I know that's something that I can work on. So there's a diagnosis going on, and then you can bring in the remedy when they're 11, not when they're 25 and they've already given up. When they're 11, they go, hey, I can do this. Yeah, and not when they've gone through all this trauma, etc. And so my mission is to get everybody at the end of their school time to do as well as the sons of the shepherds, sons and daughters of the shepherds in a mountaintop village in Sardinia could do. Get your B2 by the time you leave school. Yeah, and I would like listening to stop being connected with emotivity, with a feeling that I, as a student, am no good. And that just seems to be so common all around the world. And I want to do my part in making sure that the examining boards have to make the listening as difficult as the reading. And then you know that they're giving a B2 and a B2, and you know that you're going home with a real B2 in your pocket, and that you can actually go out into the big bad world and say, yeah, I can handle any sort of Zoom call that we need. I don't mind asking people to repeat, because I'm not wallowing in this in this area of total misunderstanding. So, shall I stop talking and show you what's happening?
I would love to see a voice book. I think, yeah,
right,
I mean,
right.
I think I had to play around with it at one point.
Yep.
But yeah, like you say, it just sounds so useful for learners, for really helping them to see what's happening when they're listening.
Yeah. And when you get their feedback, it's just so heartwarming. You know, I've never done anything like this at school, etc. And yeah, there's this feeling that they can do something. If you use a voice book and you don't go into your zone of proximal development, you're wasting your time. As Einstein said, you know, you're not correcting any errors. You might as well not be doing it. You might as well be having a drink with your friends. You know, it'll be a lot more useful. So get into your zone of proximal development. And if you don't get into your zone of proximal development, then voice books are not really giving you any added value. Yeah. So, and that's really difficult. It's so difficult for us teachers to go into a listening and say, what problems are my class, this vast bell curve in my class, what problems are they going to have? I still don't know. As I said at the beginning with run and wrong, I still don't know what problems they're going to have, because I don't know if anybody has worked out how many minimal pairs there are in English, but you know, it's just, and all of these single syllable words that nobody's used to, and you stick them into connected speech, and with connected speech, one thing before I go onto this, one thing that I say to my Italian students, I say, what music do you associate, or what music do us foreigners associate with Italian? And I don't know if there's going to be something similar for Spanish or for whatever language you've got. And they come out, it's opera music. And that's when you listen to opera music, you can hear every syllable. And listening to Italian is a bit like that. Every syllable is either stressed or not quite so stressed. Unstressed in Italian is not the same as unstressed in English, which is somewhere down here. And so I I say to them, what music do you associate with English? Opera? Do you know any good English operas? No. Nobody comes up with Benjamin Britten even, and if you can stand Benjamin Britten, then you're a pretty good listener. And sorry, Benjamin, but it doesn't fit the rhythm of our language. And I say to them, do you like English music? Yeah, we love it. Yeah. Well, so what music do you listen to? Rock, pop, etc. I go, yeah, great. Okay, what's the rhythm of that? And they go, dun, dun, and I go, yeah, that's why rock evolved in Britain. Now, do you know any big Italians on the international rock scene? And they come out with Maneskin. I say, yeah, apart from that.
Ooh, no.
Okay, right. Do you know any big it's the obverse of what you had with opera music, and so what's the word? Let's give you a nice common word in English that we use all of the time. I'll pronounce it as I normally would pronounce it, and you tell me what it means. And I say, when are you going to say the word? No, I just said it. What you said something like, I said, yeah. How do you spell that? And they go, okay, let me give it to you in a sentence. This is for you. Oh, yeah, okay, we got it. Yeah. FEW. Aren't we good at listening? Yeah. Yeah, but what would this is few mean? It's meaningless. Yeah. Few is plural and this is singular. No, this is for you. Hand them the why didn't you say for? Yeah, because then we would have understood it. Yeah. I said, yeah, but we don't. This is connected speech. Yeah. Has anybody ever spoken to you about connected speech? Never. Okay, right. Let's and you're gonna hear and the first time they hear in a voice book, they fall into the same trap, but only once or maybe twice, etc. And all of the other words that we use in connected speech, which form the backbone of what we're listening to. And I like to use that analogy as well. I say all of the words that we're using in connected speech are the backbone. Can you see have you ever seen your backbone? Never. Okay, but it's there. And if you didn't have it, you wouldn't be able to stand up. And a phrase would not be able to stand up if it didn't have a backbone. But you don't want to be continuously showing your backbone. You're trying to get across ideas. And you're going to stress the content words and not stress the syntax words, very simply. Yeah. But the problem is that with the rhythm of English, we're making sounds like, which for you are not a word. They are not, your ear has been trained through years of listening to Italian or Spanish or whatever it happens to be, to your native tongue, to ignore anything which is below your threshold. So if you hear that is not language. That is the wind or somebody closing a door or something like that. And your brain very cleverly filters that out. So you just concentrate on the sounds that you hear, which means that you cannot hear English to begin with. So you're going to have to do quite a lot of work on that. And if you don't do that work for the first 13 years of your English, then you're constantly playing with these juggling balls and using your intuition, which is brilliant. You need your intuition at all times, especially when you're doing top down. But if that's not supported by bottom up, then you have no backbone. You're just making wild stabs in the dark the whole time, and it's incredibly tiring and it's stressful, and you really just don't want to do it. But if you can go and say to your future employer, here, I can understand anything because I've been trained to do this, then your value in that company is huge, because most of the people who are working there can't do that. And even C2 listeners, they very often, the weakness that they always talk about is their listening ability. Yeah, because you have so many different variables connected with that. The quality of the line, the accent, the speed, the choice of vocabulary, etc., etc. And it's lovely when I create a voice book in order to see whether they're picking up vocabulary. And so I'll put at first glance in the first word, and they'll write rude words in there for glance. Yeah. And come out. Then in the end they click on it and they go, oh, I can't get this, and in the end they manage to get it somehow, maybe by giving up and then reading and going, oh God, yeah, okay. And then the reflections page talks about glance. You go, okay, all right. In the fourth sentence, then you put glance in there, and they just go, glance, great, yeah. Or put it in a voice book that they have to do the following week, and you get it, and you test them out, and they see, yeah, they're great. They're getting, because by the time they've given up, they've already heard the word about 10 times. They've listened to it. They've slowed it down. They've gone, what can it be? And tried out all of these things, and then they give up. And they yeah, but what is it? What is it? And I don't like being defeated by the computer, because it's a kind of computer game, and nobody minds losing in a computer game, but you hate looking stupid in front of your teacher. Yeah, so take the teacher out of the equation. Let the teacher back in only when it's time for reflection, for the comprehension questions, and then the teacher's actually giving you valuable help that you couldn't get from working on the game, if you like. Yeah, the teacher's seen that you've done it all, because the teacher gets a dashboard and knows that everybody's completed that stuff. They can get to see that Jorge did it in 40 minutes, and they can go, wow, Jorge, you're 11, you spent 40 minutes on this exercise. Brilliant. Here's a star. Well, maybe you didn't give a star to an 11-year-old, but to a 9-year-old or whatever. Yeah. Or you can, instead of just giving a low mark to Jorge, you're able to say, brilliant for all that perseverance. Let's talk about what you learned in this, and Jorge will say, yeah, I couldn't get run and wrong, but in the end I got there. Yeah. Do you like it, Jorge? Yeah, I do. Because why? Because even when we make mistakes, it doesn't tell us that we're stupid. It just says, here's an opportunity, keep going. And they do. So let's go into this. Everybody will have switched off by now. Looks rabbiting on like anything right now. Maybe I can just go into here. So I've actually created a class for anybody who's watching this. And if you go in and sign up as a teacher to voicebook.cloud and use there's a school code that you need to use to get in, so you're part of the school, and the code is Bestwick. So you don't know how came up with that, but anyway, and that's BESTWICK, just in case there are any problems with that. So you're very welcome to use the platform free of charge. I'll give you a video where you can follow it. It's in Italian, but the subtitles are in English, so you can follow the subtitles, and it'll teach you how to create a class and invite students or other teachers or whatever. You could, and please try out a voice book in a language where you're reasonably proficient, but really not great. So what I often find is that people have done French at school, and their French is either pretty ropey or it's kind of okay. So you can either go for an A1 voice book in French or a B1 voice book in French, and try to get into your zone of proximal development, because that's everything. And once you're in your zone of proximal development, are you going to use or you're going to use the same sort of tactics that you're going to teach to your students? What I say to people on how to use it, if you're using it with younger kids, you might want to use it on a limb and get everybody to come out and write a word in separately, just so it's clear how it works. They'll probably tell you how it works actually after about 2 minutes. But anyway, then get them to, as I was saying before, get them to work in pairs in the class, or even at home. It doesn't really matter. See what they do. The first time I did that, it was purely by serendipity. I turned up to a school and I said, okay, we need computers. This was kind of pre-smartphone days. Okay, we need computers. Have you got working computers? Yeah. Okay. All right. Great. 20 kids in the class. All right. Okay. So 10 might not work. That's all right. But at least they'll have a computer each. Because 20 of them didn't work. Oh my God, what are we going to do here? Okay, kids, no problem. We've thought of what to do. We're going to make this as a pair work exercise, and they got straight into it and started working away. And I was being paid handsomely to do this course, and so I thought, well, I better go and interrupt, hadn't I? Get in there, and they kind of went, go away. We're doing that. We'll call you when we need you. I was like, okay, all right. But when they come in, when the head comes in, has a look, and they're going to wonder what's happening, aren't they? But in the end, I had to give up, and I had to just look out of the window. And then the door opened, and I was looking out of the window, and I turned around, and the head was delighted. He said, yeah, great. They're just all working away. You're not doing anything. You're just looking out of the windows. Brilliant. Yeah, let's do some more classes like this. And I thought, as a teacher, I've always got this idea that I have to be active, but I really don't. If I can get myself out of the way of the learning, is it still going to go on? And of course it is. And if I'm there involved in their listening, then I'm just an obstacle to their listening. And so let's stop doing these teacher-centered classes if at all possible. And I noticed when they were doing this, just serendipitously, that they were talking about language, and realized that I'd hit on something. And so I thanked the computer technician profusely for having 20 computers that didn't work, because they'd found something new. And then they can so from using the interactive whiteboard to going to pairs to working at home, you can switch. It all works perfectly. You can give them an order in which to do. So you might say, am I not sharing my?
Yeah, we can see the Voicebooks page at the moment on screen.
You can see the Voicebooks catalog page. Okay,
yeah.
Because you can see the Beatles and Guy Fawkes and about Floyd, Virginia, and introducing article. Okay, yeah. So you can say, okay, you have to. Sorry, I got the Italian inizia there, but it means start. So you can say, just work on the Beatles, and when you finish the Beatles, work on Guy Fawkes, then work on the etc. Or you can say, just go in there, use whatever you want to do. You might find that's a bit anarchic or whatever, and so you can give them a pathway, or decide to allow them to do whatever they want. So should we go into the Beatles as we're here? So we like to bring out voice books whenever a new story comes out. So maybe I'll do one for this afternoon about a news story from today. I try not to do it about Gaza, but there are other stories going on. But here's the general interface that you'll have. So you'll have an introduction, which should set the scene. Very often students will just go, oh, I haven't got time to read that. I'm just going to go straight into the game, because it's a bit of a game. So you have to, as a teacher, you need to bring them back down to earth a little bit. And so it's the first of 7 phrases that they're going to reconstruct. I mean, this is dictogloss in a way. Dictogloss has been going on for ages and ages, but where you can get instant feedback on what you're listening to, and you have, shall we say, complete control over the feedback that you're getting. Okay, so here you're going to be writing what you hear in the middle bar. You're going to be playing. Cross our fingers that you can hear this. Can you just give me a thumbs up?
The Beatles were an extraordinary rock band from Liverpool, England.
Okay, and all they get is England. Okay, we know how to write England. It's like that, isn't it? And so let's try this out. No, come on, let's listen again a couple of times.
The Beatles were an extraordinary rock band from Liverpool, England.
Okay, so extraordinary band we heard. Couldn't understand what was between extraordinary and band, though, as I'm sure it must be a new word that we've never ever come across in our lives. Okay, all right, so let's have another listen.
The Beatles were an extraordinary rock band from Liverpool, England.
Beatles, of course. Right, let's just leave out the A and see what. Oh, sorry, that's. I'm gonna push it a little bit. Right, something like that. And Liverpool, let's get that right, etc. And so let's see what we got. Okay, great. So we got Liverpool and we got band. Oh, silly us. Of course you don't spell England like that. It's not Inglaterra, isn't it? It's Angla. Don't know why they call it England, but anyway. Okay, extraordinary. When it'll show you that there's so it'll give you 3 clues. You a bright pink letter, which says, "Great, there's a letter there," but it's not the one that that you should be using. What you're going to use instead. Okay, I'll go in there. I think it's pretty obvious that it's an A. Okay, and Beatles, great, there's a letter there, but you've missed it out. Okay, so can you add in another letter in place of that asterisk? They get this after about 20 seconds. It doesn't take them any time. Okay, great. Let's have another listen.
The Beatles were an extraordinary rock band from Liverpool, England.
First, I didn't hear it, but I can hear it now. Okay, great. Okay. The Beatles, Warren. Hang on, what's this?
The Beatles were an extraordinary rock band from Liverpool, England.
No. Okay, well, we got the Beatles, haven't we? No, the Beatles. Is that going to be from? See how you can use your top-down strategies, Okay, yeah, probably. Let's listen again.
The Beatles were an extraordinary rock band from Liverpool,
okay,
England.
So slow it down a bit. Okay, let's just listen to that. Was it from?
From Liverpool, England.
Didn't say from, did he? Okay, all right. Let's go from. Let's go. Okay, great. Yeah, but definitely that word, we've heard it at least 5 times. We cannot get that. Yeah. Where? Let's have a click. And so you click on it, and you go, guys, we know this word. Okay, all right. Let's write in this, but we certainly don't know this word here. What kind of word could that be? Let's have another listen.
The Beatles were an extraordinary rock band from Liverpool, England.
God, it's a roll, isn't it?
That's definitely what it sounds like.
Yeah, yeah. And okay, all right, let's click on the word. Skateboarder. A musical genre that emerged from the 1950s. And let's have another listen.
The Beatles were an extraordinary rock band from Liverpool, England.
And so eventually they can make lots of mistakes, and then they'll get a button coming up saying you can give up if you want, etc. But let's say they chance it and manage to get it. Again, using a top-down strategy here, and you go, hang on, let's listen to this again.
The Beatles were an extraordinary rock band from Liverpool, England.
And you go, yeah, why couldn't we understand that at the beginning? Because we spent 80% of our time working on that in our zone of proximal development. So as soon as we couldn't write in any more words, or almost before we could write in any words, if you like, you were in your zone of proximal development. But it's an 80-20, it's one of those famous 80-20 things. Okay, great, we can hear that now. And so it's quite interesting to get them to do it a week later, and they just go, and they go straight through it. There's also some statistics here. So it took them 5 minutes to complete a 5-second thing. Now, most of the time, we're doing listening comprehension in real time. So 5 seconds, they have 5 seconds in which to decipher what they're hearing, to decode what they're hearing. And of course, they can't do it. 1 to 60 is a totally normal time for decoding. So none of this 2 minutes of audio like you're giving them in your tests. No, they need 5 seconds at a time, and they can do lots of very valuable work in with just 5 minutes of sound. And Reed John Field, he talks about this all of the time. How they need to be working on intensive listening. Extensive listening is really easy to get. You just go on to Netflix, stick on the subtitles, and pretend that what you're doing is listening, but you're reading the subtitles all the time. So why don't I change this to English? Okay, so the time taken was 5 minutes and 35 seconds. Great. And the teacher will know that you've spent all of this time and will give you your star. You scored 10 points. There were 10 is one for every word in the phrase. You clicked on 2 of the hints. So you needed to click on were and on rock. Yeah, words that you know perfectly well, but which were for you just far above your threshold. And you made 6 mistakes. Okay. And now this has turned green. So, great, sense of achievement. And of course, you've got the reflection. And teacher, I know the teacher is going to give a question in the class on what's on the reflection page. So I'd better look at this. Maybe the most difficult word to understand here was rock. Yeah, as we saw. In connected speech, often the final T sound and sometimes the final K sound can be lost, especially when the next word begins with a softer sound, K, and B are difficult to say together. Rock band. I mean, that's the way I say it. So we keep the B and lose much of the K. Does that help you to understand English better? Yeah. And they listen again, they go, well, okay, I get it now. That's why I couldn't understand it. Yeah. And they're already looking for, why couldn't we understand this word rock? Yeah. And if we can, we or the teacher can do this, because the teacher can find out that I've clicked on rock. The teacher can find out that I clicked on were, kind of understands about what's been the problem, and that's the next lesson. So you take listening almost out of the classroom. So sorry, John Field, you say listening in the language classroom. Why not give it to them outside the language classroom, so that there's no stress on them. Somebody's going to finish in 5 minutes, somebody's going to finish in 40 minutes. There's none of that anymore. And you just keep working through this. And because it's answering the fundamental question of, what did they say? And listening is at the very heart, or should be at the very heart of language learning, and it's not in so many cases, because teachers just go, poor kids, listening is too difficult for them. Why don't I give you a reading? Yeah. And then, as we said before, they just compound all of their problems. They invent the pronunciations like Ian Hislop, or the Nobel Prize winner, or Teresa Bestwick, if I can say that. And I'm sure I do it myself. I have a problem with, one word I have a problem with is almonds. Is it almonds or is it almonds? And that was from reading. Yeah.
I say almonds. Yep.
It's almonds and I say almonds, I think. Yeah.
But I think maybe some people do say almonds.
Right.
I think it's one of those things where there are different dialectal pronunciations of it.
Yeah. And this discussion that we're having, in most languages, they wouldn't have at all. No, there is a correct pronunciation. That's it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't agree with Americans about how to pronounce thorough. So completely different. Like the first few times I heard it, what's he saying? My dad wouldn't watch Kojak with us when we were kids. We really wanted him to watch it because he said, "Sorry guys, I can't understand a single word that they're saying," because he hadn't been brought up with American television programs, So if you have problems with listening, if you're not a native speaker and you have problems with listening, it's perfectly normal. Ever been to Newcastle recently? You just go, what are they saying? So, apologies to everybody from Newcastle, but you know what I mean. And so let me get you to have a look at the back end as well. So what you as a teacher would see from this session that we just had. So let's pop out of. Okay, so I'll go into the teacher dashboard here. Oh. I was hoping to get all of our results here on the right, but some other kids are using. Get off the platform, will you? Anthony. Okay, here we are. Yeah, all right. So I can see all of the attempts that I made to complete this phrase. So all of the times when I thought that I'd got it, all of the hypotheses that I was coming up with, and I wasn't quite getting them right. This is a little bit connected rather too much with spelling than with, you see, the problem of understanding where they're going to have problems with minimal pairs. We just don't do it as teachers. But at least we've got it with rock and with roll. And so we can look at this and wonder, should we have a look, see what house and use? I wonder whether, yeah. It's not always, a few problems with terrible, etc., etc. But we can go over here and we can look at the words that they looked up, the words that they clicked on. Now, I normally try and hide this word here, but this is the word that we've had 1,038 clicks on. And look at it, it's viral. Why do people have problems with understanding viral? This is my voice, actually.
Digital neuromarketing can tell us how to set up a landing page, for example, or how to make a social media post go viral.
There's me trying to be A2, trying to talk really, really slowly. Yeah, it should be obvious, shouldn't it? But they make this mistake because they know the word, and it's a cognate in both, probably in all European languages, and everybody says viral, and so they're not expecting it to be viral at all. Where basically nearly all of the sounds, apart from the V and maybe the L, are different. Yeah, and so they write the most wonderful hypotheses. They Pharaoh is one of the nicest ones. Pharaoh, all sorts of things that they can't even hear that it's a V sound, you know. But it and your brain wants to push you into that area, as we were saying before, and they can't get out of it, and they need a voicebook interface to kind of go, nah, it was that. Look at the, it was that. Talking of which, the second most clicked on word is that. Now, you might say that, okay, the word that is not hugely important in that particular context, but listen to how I say that.
This is a controversial area, one that is particularly suitable for developing digital strategies.
Yeah, and sometimes that word that is going to be important for them to understand in that same syntactical context. And again, this was me trying to speak incredibly clearly, knowing that kids have this was a neuromarketing course, as you can see, but that they have problems with understanding without understanding the sound. Let me go into the Voicebooks area. You can even make your own Voicebooks once you signed up, if you like. You're getting some unpublished ones, and here's the published one. What were you going to look at? Yeah, the statistics for this. And so you can see that the number of people, right, I published it yesterday, so the number of people who've clicked on the difficult words, okay, and some other people have clicked on personality. They haven't been able to pick up on personality. So one other person has used this. So somebody's actually gone in there. And why did they have problems with personality? I wonder. Let's have a listen.
Because of their talent, practice, personality, innovation and timing, and probably their iconic mop top hairstyle.
I mean, who knows? I've got no idea why they had a problem with that. Today,
that wrote and performed extremely popular music from 1960 to 1970 and still influence musicians and culture today.
Yeah, who knows what was going on, and there's were, etc. And so as a teacher, if you're teaching neuromarketing English, you do, of course, go straight into viral, straight into that, straight into glance, rather than giving them a comprehension question, because you don't know. Look at us. We're struggling here. We've got 60 years of teaching experience together, and we can't come up with the words that they're going to have problems with in a single phrase, even if we analyze it. They tell us, they teach us. I learn so much. Well, learn, it's a big word, I guess, but I hope that I'm learning bits and pieces as I go on. But I learn so much, like, every day by doing this. And
it really is like an amazing platform, just as you say, for the student to be able to get that immediate feedback, but then for the teacher as well to be able to see where those problems are and to do something useful with it.
Yeah. This is born out of the learning that I've had over the last 30 years. Yeah, so I've kind of got it down to a T, if I can use your name in vain. And yeah, the feedback is really great from everybody. Once you realize that you have to use the zone of proximal development, and that it's a bit of a pointless task if you don't, then you can just go for it. And if you sign up, you'll get to manage a class. And I'll make a video available to everybody on that. When you invite somebody, you just click on share. And when you do that, Do you go out? Some browsers you do, some browsers you don't, which is inviting you to register. So when you go along and register, so this is your etc. Register as a teacher. You go in there, you write in Bestwick for your school code. You can put it in your mobile phone if you want, because sometimes we see people just floundering around, and we'd love to help them. One thing is if you send a quick WhatsApp message and say, here, let me help you out, etc. Another thing is send them an email to t@voicebook.com, which doesn't even exist, and so we can go for this. This is mine, by the way. If anybody wants mine, you can send me a WhatsApp message if you like. So and then you register. Sorry, not long enough. Okay. Teacher bed. I'm not sure if you need to do it in capital letters or whether you can do it any way you want. I've still got my number in there. Accept the terms. You can have a look at the privacy policy on your own. I'm not going to do that here. Register. Okay. Don't think we need to save that password. And you come in here. You've got the number of students enrolled. You've already got a class, which I'll show you how to use in a second. And you've got a couple of Voicebooks loaded up into that class. And you can select it. It's called default. I'll get you to change that in your manage classes area. Pop in here. And so you can see the name. Oh, first name, how funny. And go in here. You can edit the classrooms. And we'll call it T's favorite students. Juan and Jorge's group. The kids won't see the description or the class name that you make out of it, so you can be as rude as you want. And oh yes, we just brought this in. So this is the pathways that I was talking about. Let's say get that translated in a second, and we'll save that. So you've created your class, but you haven't got Juan and Jorge on there because you're going to share the class with them. You're going to click on there, and you've got there. My browser tells me that I've clicked the link in that I've put the link in there. Oh, okay. And they go in and they register in the same way. They can't register as a teacher if they use the link because it's grayed out, and so they're student and they have this class code. Oh, right, I have to get rid of that. They have this class code as well that's already written in, so they can't make a mistake unless they decide they're not going to use your link and go into Voicebook Cloud on their own, like some do. And so you will find that you have teachers in your class aged 11, which is a lot of fun. And once they've signed up, you'll see them in the Edit Students area. There's nothing to see there at the moment. And you can go into Voicebooks. You can add some Voicebooks. And here we've got A Close Encounter with a Mountain Lion, which is lovely, a lovely thing. If you have students who are anywhere in the B area, they will go straight into their zone of proximal development in the first phrase in there. So that's quite a nice one to work on. And this Earth Out to protect the Earth. Now I don't know about you, but the word Earth, they can't get to save their lives, and they'll normally write something like heart, etc. And but you can go in and do the Voicebook yourself, but of course there's not a lot of point in that. You can, as a teacher, you can go in and see the pages. And hello, it's time for today's big question. Why did you take her? Let's have a listen to that.
Hello, it's time for today's big question. Why should we take care of the earth?
Do you reckon that's an A2? Yeah, okay, right. That's an A2. We can give that to them. Great. Okay, we're happy with that. And so we don't want them to do Close Encounter first. We want them to do March the 27th first. So that's first and second in the list. And they will come in and they will only be able to start with the March the 27th Earth Hour. If they start complaining, you can get rid of the pathways at any time that you want. You know, if for any reason it's not right. You can add as many voice books as you want. Now we have a problem on that point from that point of view because there are about 800 of them now. So you know you can get a bit lost on that. So we've put in very recently these playlists, and you can pop in there and take a look. Medical English A2. There's a couple of voice books in that. Yeah, great. My doctors will love that later on. Okay, the lungs and the respiratory system. Let's pop that down here. Cardiology and pressure. Let's pop that down. Blood pressure. Pop it down here. Again, we can go in and have a look at this. And okay, yeah, I reckon my medical students. Yeah. I guess they're not going to have any problems with this. But then you can also get to see what problems other people have had with this. Let's go and have a look at these stats. Okay, 71 people have tried this out. Okay, let's see. Now this is in alphabetical order. So let's put it in order of the words that they had problems with. Whereas, okay, peak. Now hang on, peak. How can that be a problem? Let's have a listen. And so you already know more or less what problems they're going to have. Sorry, my mouse is a bit horrid. I've got a mouse pad that's misbehaving a little bit. So a word that they probably know.
Whereas the systolic pressure is the peak pressure that occurs during ventricular contraction.
Again, we've got the k there, and peak pressure, probably not even pronouncing that k. Yeah, and allows, what else is he, cycle, chamber, occurring. Yeah, okay, a lot of these are technical words that you probably imagine that they've all read and just cannot create this connection between sound and grapheme. And if we can provide them with that, then so much the better. And so you've already got your lesson plan sorted out there. You've got the 8 most common words that they've clicked on. You know individually who had problems with which words. All right, so this guy B70 had a problem with than and then. Yeah, all right. Less and least. Yeah, okay. I wonder what's causing this problem. Yeah, and then so you can go over the superlatives and the comparatives and blah, 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 etc. Yeah. So there's so many things that you can do. This person just doesn't know the word occurring. It's really clear. Yeah. So let's work on the meaning of that, etc. Yeah. So you're going to get a mountain of material, as much material, much or as little material as you want to use, and let them get on with the listening, while you act as the teacher with all of these. What you're basically getting is insights into their thought processes while they're listening, and that's just wonderful, because normally it's just blank face. What's the problem? Why are you having problem with run and wrong and with gavel and navel and etc. Yeah, and we're none the wiser by the end of the lesson, and neither are they. So I would like to start a movement to ban the comprehension question until the last part of a listening exercise. See whether that works. I'm not sure the publishers are quite ready for something like this. But if, publishers, if you're looking at this, we'll get on the bandwagon, because we're working with a couple of publishers at the moment who are interested. So please be the first on a general level, because I'd love to get this out to 1,000 schools like the ones that you're getting them to, not 100 like us.
Awesome. Cool. I mean, it's such a great app. We've had a couple of questions. Catherine says she doesn't have a class at the moment, but can she just go in and have a look anyway?
Yeah, of course. Because if you remember the keyword, the school code is Bestwick. Go for it. And I mean, if you have somebody that you can share a French voice book with, that's great. Let me show you maybe how you could find a French voice book in among the 800. Go into manage your classes. T-Series students, you're going to put in a voice book. You're going to add a voice book in here. You're going to select the language. Français. Look for these, all three of them. So an A1, a B1, and a B2. So those should be fine for you. So the A1 is just going to the market and picking up some carrots. And this is, can you see les jeunes arbres here? Yeah. You can you see alors au début de le jeune arbre se comporte? Okay, so it did switch across there.
Alors, au début, le jeune arbre se comporte comme un parasite. Les praticiens, ils appellent ça des gourmands.
Okay, so it's good B2 French, quite difficult in a way, and you can decide, yeah, okay, great, let's add les jeunes arbres in there, add that voice book, and then anybody who wants to play the game with you, Catherine, get them to try it out. When they sign up to this Bestwick classroom, then they'll have full access to anything that you provide. Or sorry, you're going to sign up to the Bestwick classroom. They are going to sign up to your class, which at the moment is called default, and maybe you can call it something different, or otherwise. But they will have full access to anything that you put on there for them. And at the moment, you got until the end of November, but I am fairly flexible about giving you access. It is so if you can make sure that there's a little bit of cash coming through, that's a bit of a help. But yeah, try it out. The most important thing is just to get everybody to try it out, because my finding is that people just they don't want to they don't want to go back to listening in the other way. And some students have said, I realize how much I'm fooling myself that I understand when I go and listen on Netflix, for example, because I'm just not picking up nearly as much as I thought that I was. Yeah, Catherine, go for it. That was the first question. So yeah, use it to your heart's content.
Then if you create you said you could create your own voice books as a teacher. Are they automatically shared with everyone, or are they private just to you at first?
You can, yeah, they will be private until such time as they're published. Now you can use it just for a single student, maybe something like that. There's a kind of way around it. Creating a voice book is quite tough. Go for work out exactly how the system is used first, and then we'll do you the advanced training for learning how to make it. You need to be able to create a sound file, which is not to everybody's taste. You need to create a transcription. You need to connect a hint with every single word in that phrase. You need to create a reflections page. So this, this is a fair amount of work to do, but I just love to help you out. So was that Catherine again wanting to
Well,
create?
that was my question. Yeah,
that's your question. No wonder you smiled when I said that. Yeah, very happy to help you out with that. And I mean, I can now I won't show you on here. I'll show you separately because I don't want to overload people too much, and it's it's quite a lot to do. I've got to make this a little bit smaller so I can get out of here, I think. Oops, slightly overdid that. But,
well, I mean, it was a great session, Anthony, and Anthony's in the group. So if anybody has any other questions, feel free to tag him here in the comments. And yeah, just like you say, so much to think about in terms of how we can better help our students with their listening skills.
Great. Yeah, I'd love to talk about that. There's quite a few people starting to work on decoding now. I don't know if you've come across Learn Your English and Leonardo Gomez from over in Canada. He's doing some great work. Louis Jacquest, who wanted to come on earlier, but and there's of course all the work by John Field and the wonderful Richard Caldwell, and both of them have basically retired before seeing that their decoding has become no, it hasn't become mainstream. I'd love to see it become mainstream before I retire. Okay, so you got about 3 years to sort out with any luck.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Anthony. Yep, it's been great.
Been fantastic. Yeah, great. And I mean, if you want to switch off the recording and I'll show you how to make your own voice book, if you want to do that, that's absolutely fine too, if you've got some time.
Fab. Well, everyone in the hub, have a fabulous rest of your day, and we'll be back again in a couple of weeks.